So my name's Swetlik, and I'm running for Boulder City Council as well. I've been living in Boulder for 11 years. I graduated from the University of Colorado in 2010, and we've heard a lot today about what we would all do. We share a lot of the same perspectives. I feel like we're all trying to reach ultimately the same goals through affordable housing, through better transportation, through reducing our dependence on carbon in the community. All of those types of things are super important, and I agree with so many positions that the other candidates have that I just want to spend a little time talking about perspective. I think perspective is an incredibly important thing when you're deciding who's going to represent you. Matt touched on representative democracy a little bit, and frankly, I don't think Boulder City Council has had a very good representation of our democracy for a very long time. So I'm 30 years old, just turned 30 this week, and it's been a little bit jarring, but that's okay. And I really didn't get involved in politics prior to last year. Last year was really, as with many people, sort of a jolt to do something. I didn't really follow anything, but then I got heavily involved last year, and I just realized that the level of inequality, not only in America, but all the way down here in Boulder, is just staggering. No one has, an easy time staying in Boulder anymore, and that's at every single level. And I just think that's really a tragedy. I've only been here 11 years, not nearly as long as some of the other candidate council members run. But I've just seen it, even in the past decade, how much harder it gets for young people to establish a lifestyle here, for people who have been here for a very long time to actually maintain a household here. As the others have said, property taxes are increasing exponentially every single year, and that drives out not only the people who want to establish a home, but the people who have been here forever. So it affects people all up and down the line. And that's sort of a self-imposed issue that we've put on ourselves. So Boulder has been a very friendly jobs community for a very long time now. Since 2010, Boulder County has added 3.3 jobs for every housing unit that's been made available in the county. And that means that's not just like single family homes, that's 600 square feet condos like the one I live. It's the reality that, we have so many more jobs than we have houses to bring people in here. Nobody can live where they work. Only 40% of our workforce in this city actually lives here. And that is just insane to me. The fact that you have, tens of thousands of people driving in every single day, polluting the air, and just putting more carbon emissions into the atmosphere every single day so they can get to work and make a living for themselves. It's a double-edged sword. It's a triple-edged sword. It's crazy. And we need to prioritize affordable housing right now. And when I say affordable housing, I don't just mean, for the lowest income people, but for middle income people as well. They need just as much help as the low income people do at this point, just to remain in our community. So this has sort of been my journey over the last few years. When I graduated, I started working 2 jobs, and I've been working 2 jobs ever since. So I go to my 40-hour week day job. I'm a marketing professional at an electronics company up in Niwot. And then on my weekends, I'm a bouncer down at the Walrus Saloon. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years, which has been super fun. Prior to that, I was a rowing coach for the University of Colorado. I rowed all 4 years at CU, which was a very, very interesting experience. I learned about the Boulder Reservoir more than anything. And I came to complain to council several times because Boulder City owns Boulder Reservoir, and the reservoir was trying to impose some fees that wouldn't actually allow us to row there anymore. So I had my fair share of council meetings to voice my opinion about how I would like to continue paying money to actually be involved in a sport that I loved. Because Colorado Crew is a club organization, so you pay money to actually participate. So I've had my fair share of time going to council meetings, and seeing what the process is like. And bringing this all back around, the representation is really lacking. And I think it's time that we actually put someone who has to work a job every day, who has to ask off to come to one of these forums during the week on council, so that we have that perspective of someone who's, forced to actually work multiple jobs just to stay in our community. I don't think we've had that perspective at all for a very long time. And I think it's time again to put that back on council. And just, to touch on Indivisible Boulder's sort of tenets, I think the massive inequality we have touches on almost every single one of them. Inequality really affects the most vulnerable communities in our city and across our nation. So if we're ever gonna fix anything at all, it starts with reducing that inequality. And I think just to run down a few more things, affordable housing is number one, because if people can live here where they work, they can start building equity and they can actually invest in their own lives. If they're constantly renting and being priced out by rents, then that's never gonna happen. We need to provide more housing for people to actually become members of the community. I was a renter for many years, and I never truly felt like I was a member of the community because I didn't have any stake. I knew probably the next year my rent would go up $100, $200, and I'd have to find a cheaper place or another roommate. That's just what happens. That's sort of what's happened for several years now. If we provide more houses at the lower and middle income levels, it's just gonna make it easier for people to actually live here and work here. To touch on a few more things, municipalization. I know this is a hot button issue, and it seems like a lot of people have changed their minds over time. I'm still firmly in the I would like to municipalize camp. My reasons being, I really truly believe it's the only chance we have to hit the 2030 goals that we have set out for clean energy. If we spend money in other ways, Xcel still controls our power grid, and they determine what exactly we can do to that power grid. So, personally, I don't really like large corporations controlling my lives or the lives of my community, and I'm gonna fight to the bitter end until the voters tell me not to anymore to try to make sure that's not the reality we live in. Also, there's a lot of added benefits to owning your own power grid. If you own your power lines, the reason why Longmont has Google Fiber right now is because they were a municipalized institution for a very long time. And that actually provided that opportunity for them to bring in Google Fiber. And I know everyone really loves Comcast and Xfinity so much that they wouldn't like a competitor to it, but I'm personally one who likes a little bit more competition. So that's another reason why I'm in the municipalization camp. Finally, I just want a future where I actually am alive, and I'm gonna take the most aggressive stance on climate change. I'm just gonna do it. Like, that's what I want for my generation, is to actually be alive when it comes to the end of it. And I don't think that's something to be sad about. I'm gonna take that stance. That's just where I'm at with that. That's pretty much all I have. I would really like to hear a little feedback. And if you have any questions for me, please feel free. Yeah?
I think what you mean by, on the last thing that you said about climate change, and sounds like you want to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, so we can caulk all the windows we want, no offense, Ed, but that is not going to ultimately change the fate of our futures and how much climate change is going to have an effect on our world. So Boulder right now, we're sort of the tip of the spear in showing that we're forcing these energy companies to take a look even beyond the moral obligation. But I realize it's becoming an actual economic viable thing to use sustainable energy sources. We still need to push the envelope, because Xcel can pull back on their commitment to 55% clean energy by 2027 the second that we pull back from fighting for municipalization. So I just want to keep pressing the envelope, because I don't trust large corporations. That's just not, they don't have our best interests in mind. They're profit driven.